Excellent. Take it away, Nicole.
Thank you, Lauren. And thanks to everyone for joining us this afternoon for the Kayak Conference and for this session. I'm just going to briefly introduce our speaker and then turn it over to her. This session is called Making a Makerspace, and we're delighted to have Amanda Wheeler. She is the Experimental Learning Supervisor at the Lexington Public Library, and she's going to be talking to us today about Makerspaces. So take it away, Amanda.
All right, thank you so much, Nicole. I am so excited to be here. I'm going to give you guys just a little information about myself, and then we are going to hop right in here to making a makerspace. So my name is Amanda Wheeler. I started my library career in Lincoln County at the Lincoln County Public Library. I was the Children and Teen Services librarian there for 6.5 years. After that, I did a little career pivot, went to the Living Arts and Science Center in Lexington. Loved my time there as a STEM educator. Realized that I miss being at a library. Just libraries have a really special place in my heart, as I'm sure they do for all of you guys. So did a little career pivot back to the Lexington Public Library, where I am now as the Experiential Learning Supervisor. So I'm really excited to share my Makerspace kind of journeys with you guys and kind of dig deeper into Makerspaces. I have helped create 5 different Makerspaces, and I am currently working on number 6 right now. So really excited to share Makerspaces with you guys because I love them. So the first thing that I want to do is have everybody just type in the chat 1 or 2 words that you think of when you think about a makerspace. So just 1 or 2 words. If you guys will take just a couple minutes and put in the chat what makerspaces make you think of. So I'm seeing Cricut, 3D printers, sewing, woodworking, creativity. I'm seeing that a lot. More 3D printers, Legos, crafts, creativity, STEM, engraving, people making things together, having fun, overwhelming. They can be. Hopefully after this you'll feel better about them, but they can be. The whole idea can be kind of overwhelming sometimes. CNC, 3D printer, messy chaos sometimes, but hopefully good chaos. There's good chaos. Yeah, gathering space, experiential, tinkering, button makers. These are fantastic answers. Thank you guys so much. So a makerspace is all of this, right? And the really cool thing about makerspaces, and one of the things that I love, is that they can be so many different things and they can be what you need them to be. And I have never, I've been to a lot of makerspaces. I have never been to a makerspace and 2 of them were exactly the same, because, I mean, we'll kind of dig into why that is, but that's one of the things I love about makerspaces. Creativity, oh, magical, absolutely. I'm with you 100%. Opportunity, getting male identified people into the library, absolutely, and it can do all these things. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide. And let's see what people, we've kind of given some 1-2 word answers about makerspaces, and we're going to kind of dig into the definition of a makerspace. A communal public workshop in which makers can work on small personal projects. So that's Merriam-Webster, and that communal, right? And that's what it's all about. It's the community. And you guys were saying that too. It's community, it's opportunity, it's people working together. And then here we go, Cambridge Dictionary, a place where people can, again, come together, create, invent things using traditional crafts or technology. And probably my favorite definition is gonna come to us from makerspace.com. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I did underline some parts that I thought were really, really important, okay? So the makerspace is collaborative. So again, we have communal, come together, collaborative. It's all about working together. And you see that in the comments that you guys made and also these definitions. And then it talks about specifically kinds of things that you guys were talking about, those 3D printers, those laser cutters, CNC machines, soldering irons, sewing machines. But it does also say a makerspace, however, does not need to include all of these machines or even any of them to be considered a makerspace. And this last part is my favorite. If you have cardboard, Legos, and art supplies, you're in business. So someone earlier said, you know, it's overwhelming. It can be overwhelming when you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have to buy a 3D printer and a laser cutter and a CNC machine and a soldering iron and a sewing machine, and I don't know anything about any of those things. It can feel really overwhelming, and I have felt really overwhelmed planning makerspaces before. But I really like this definition because it shows you that you can have these high-tech things, but you also don't have to. You can have no tech tools. You can be in business with some cardboard, some Legos, and some art supplies. So as we go through this presentation, I want you guys to remember it doesn't have to be a huge undertaking. It can be very simple, very easy. So we're going to go ahead and go to the next slide and figure out, how do we get started? So the most important part of the makerspace to me is the planning on the front. The more planning you have on the front, the more input you get at the beginning, the easier your path is going to be, because the clearer your vision will be. So when you are getting started, the first question that I always ask myself is why? Why am I doing this? What do I want to do? What is the purpose? And so some of the reasons that I have made makerspaces, and they might also apply to why you might want to make a makerspace, has been combating low science and math scores in my community, having a lack of STEAM resources in my community, and that can be having no STEAM resources or having affordable STEAM resources. So one of my favorite things about the library is that we are no cost or low cost. And a lot of STEAM resources can be very cost prohibitive. And so I really like having makerspaces in the library, because it can just give that accessibility to people that would not normally be able to afford some of the other STEAM resources that might be available. And another reason you might need to make a makerspace would be filling a gap in services, like having more career development opportunities. For example, maybe using virtual reality for some trades programs to allow community members to get certified in trades like plumbing or in electrical engineering and things like that. So, and then who? So who do we serve now? Thinking about your patrons, who can you serve better? Who has gaps in services? Just who's going to use this space? And I have made makerspaces for preschoolers. I have made makerspaces for elementary, middle school, high school students, and then just teens and adults. And all of those spaces are going to look different. And so that's why it's really important on the front end that you figure out, why are you doing this? Who's it going to be? And then also, where are you going to put this makerspace? The really cool thing about a makerspace is that you can have a designated room that is your makerspace, but you don't have to. A makerspace could be a cart that you have your maker equipment on, and maybe you bring it out on Mondays, you have Maker Mondays, you have your equipment on your cart, you put it all out on tables, and then at the end of Maker Monday, when that program is over, it gets all packed up nice and compact on your cart and can be stored away until the next program. So it can be an entire space, but I want you guys to think about how you can do this in your library. And it does not have to be a space, a designated room, because I know a lot of us do not just have an extra room lying around in the library that we can turn into a makerspace, and that's okay. And then, what is your goal? Are you wanting to increase science and math scores in your community? Are you wanting to provide those STEAM resources to your community. And what are the outcomes that you want to see? Maybe someone in the comments said male identified people, get those people into the library. If that's one of your outcomes, that's a measurable outcome. So I would encourage you guys to come up with outcomes that you can measure. And that's going to be really important for lots of reasons, right? So for managers, administration, but also this next bullet point, it's going to be really important when you are identifying your funding resources. So as we all do not just have a room lying around that we can turn into a makerspace, you might also not have funding lying around that you can use to create your makerspace. So having, conversations with community members who might be able to help you out, with programming, with ideas, maybe with some equipment and things if you need it. Or also identifying those stakeholders, making sure that if you are wanting to increase STEAM resources in your community, maybe you want to bring in some science and teachers from the school and kind of have them help you see where the gaps in services might be. And then again, those funding resources, which are very, very important. I was really lucky. The very first makerspace I ever made, we were funded through the Steele Reese Foundation. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat. And if you are an ARC, which is Appalachian Regional Commission, if you are an ARC county, then you are eligible to receive funding from you're eligible to write a grant proposal to receive funding from the Steele Reese Foundation. And we actually got a very large grant from them. It was a 2-year grant. We did have the space for the makerspace, but we did not have necessarily the staff. And so that's another thing, that's another consideration, who's going to be in the makerspace. And so with the Steele Reese, thank you, Nicole. So with the Steele Reese Foundation, we were actually able to hire a part-time STEM educator to help with the makerspace, which was huge. So I would highly recommend that you guys look into applying for a grant from the Steele Reese Foundation if you are in one of the ARC counties. Perfect. All right. So that's how you get started. So there's lots and lots of conversation, lots and lots of thoughts that go into that. But it's not too hard because you are not creating the very first makerspace. You are not reinventing the wheel. And you probably already have things in your library that you can use to make your makerspace. So like we talked about at the very beginning, some of the things that you're going to need, you might want cardboard and Legos and art supplies. And I bet you probably have some of those things in your library already. So when you start thinking about your makerspace and what you want it to look like and who you're going to serve and where is it going to be, you can start kind of collecting those things that you already have in your library. I will tell you that it's really important to be thoughtful about the items that you're putting into this space. Make sure that they fit your goals and your outcomes. I had to be really thoughtful when I was creating a pre-K makerspace, making sure that all of the equipment and things that we were putting in there were developmentally appropriate. So just be really thoughtful. You don't want to, throw a ton of stuff in there. You want to be really thoughtful about how the patrons are going to use the equipment. And then I would highly recommend, I cannot recommend this enough, learn from other people who are already doing it. When I created my very first makerspace, I went, and actually every time I have created a makerspace, I have been fortunate enough to be able to go either into my community or to other libraries, other places like the Kentucky Science Center, and see how they are making their makerspace work. So I cannot emphasize this enough. If you have the opportunity, either in person or virtually, to go tour the spaces, I would highly recommend it. Gather ideas, make sure you take lots of notes, lots of pictures, and because you're not reinventing the wheel. You don't have to make the very first makerspace. There are lots of makerspaces all over the country. You can do tons of research online. And, if you have a makerspace for, a specific demographic that you're looking for or a specific age range that you're looking for, you can probably find someone who's already done it or something similar and kind of take that and run with it the way that you want to. So, and we're kind of doing that today, right? We're learning about these makerspaces virtually. And I will say, I'm in Lexington. If anybody wants to come and tour our spaces, I would be more than happy to set that up with you for you to tour our spaces. Absolutely. So yeah, so learn from people and use your community resources. And I will tell you, I have been, Kentucky Science Center, lots of different libraries. We went to Cincinnati, Kenton County does a great job as well. And I've never asked to go to a makerspace and been turned down. So a lot of people who have makerspaces, they want to share, what they're doing. And you can, take notes, what you like, what you think would work well for you and your space. So yeah, so learn from other people and you're not reinventing the wheel. You don't have to do something brand new. And you can do it. You can absolutely do it. It is 100% something that you can do. You don't have to know everything. It's really intimidating, like I said, when you're kind of diving into it at first and you're, I had no idea, when I was purchasing my first CNC machine, what that was and what it did and how you can use it. So it's definitely a learning process. I would say make sure that you give yourself lots of grace. But it's also really important to remember that you don't have to know everything because nobody knows it all. So something that we tell our customers is that, if we don't know something, we are more than happy to learn that alongside you. So there's lots of times that, something goes wrong maybe with the 3D printer, and it's something that I've never seen go wrong with a 3D printer. And so we're learning alongside our customers how, what went wrong, how can we fix it, what can we do next time, is this preventable? So it's okay not to know. And I would also say it's okay to start small. Before I had a makerspace, I had a science stop. It was a table with a sign, and I changed out the science activity monthly. And so you can start really small. You don't have to dive in to, a huge space. You might not have that capacity. So, start small however you want to. And then as you gain confidence, as you gain an audience, as people become more familiar with the idea, then you can kind of launch a larger scale. And then you can also build on your existing programming. When I did my very first makerspace, I had an existing Lego club and I had a Minecraft club, and we were starting to do some crafts and things. So I actually started moving some of the clubs, like Lego Club, into the makerspace once we had it ready to go. So that kind of increases awareness of the space, because you build it and they say once you build it, they will come, but they won't if they don't know. So once you build it, you do have to increase that awareness of the space. And especially for people who might be unfamiliar with what a makerspace is, what can you do there? So, and again, you don't have to do it alone. That's where, we're talking about bringing in those partners. You can deepen existing partnerships or create new ones. This is a photo of a thermal imaging camera that I actually borrowed from Fayette County Public Schools. I did not have a very deep relationship with Fayette County Public Schools, but I did have a really good relationship with a teacher who, when I was explaining to her what my idea was, she said, oh, Fayette County, I think, has some of these thermal imaging cameras that you might be able to borrow. So got in contact with the right people, and they were more than happy to let us borrow this. This is a photo from the exhibit/makerspace that I created for the Living Arts and Science Center. So it never hurts to ask. The worst thing that they can do is tell you no, and they might just tell you yes. So I was over the moon that they let us borrow this for our Makerspace/Color and Light exhibit. And then you also want to focus on the details. So there's a lot of thinking, a lot of processing, a lot of troubleshooting that goes into the makerspace. And I like to do all my troubleshooting on the front end. So then when you get to the back end, hopefully you've already figured out a lot of the things that could possibly go wrong. So we already talked about age range, but I will just tell you again how important that is to be very thoughtful with who you want in the space, who is this space specifically for, and make sure that that is communicated clearly. And it's important to think about this age range specifically from beginning to end throughout the entire process, but especially at the end, and you're looking at your space and everything you have, and just make sure that, you know, the target age range you're trying to hit, this space definitely does that for them. So, and then something to think about on your makerspace journey is that, is your space open all the time? Is it open during certain times? That kind of leads into the next point. Is it self-paced, self-guided? You know, if it's open all the time, you might not necessarily be able to staff that at all times. So are you going to have self-paced, self-guided types of things, passive type things in the space? Or is it going to be a service point? Is there going to be somebody in the space at all times? And what does that look like? And then are you going to charge for items? Are you having consumable items in there? Like if you have a 3D printer, that filament is going to be consumable. Are you going to charge customers for that? If you're not going to charge them, what budget is that coming out of? So lots of kind of sticky details to think about right there. And then I'm going to kind of take you guys through the makerspaces that I've created and kind of show you guys they can be very, very different. So this is the very first makerspace that I was able to create. And obviously I did not make this alone. You cannot make a makerspace by yourself. So there were lots and lots of people involved, but this is the first one that I worked on. And so this one we did have open to all ages. We were able to have an entire room because we actually transformed our rarely used teen space into a makerspace. When we did that, we started holding our Lego club inside here. Our teen advisory group was meeting in here. If you guys notice, this right wall right here is green. That is a green screen wall. The teen advisory group and other teens and really kids of all ages loved the green screen. And because we started, you know, marketing it for teens, but also all ages, we actually saw an increase in usage of the space by teens than when it was just a teen space. So we're really happy with that. We did have certain hours that it was teens only, so we could kind of still allow them to have some time that was just set aside for them. But we were really happy with the way that space turned out. It was open all the time. It was not staffed all the time, so it was more passive and things like that. So then we're gonna go to the Living Arts and Science Center. This on the left is part of the Makerspace / light exhibit, color and light exhibit. And then on the right is the pre-K Makerspace. And so the exhibit changes yearly, but the Makerspace stays the same. So in the Makerspace, we had things like 3D printer, makey, all sorts of these green, you can see like these big green foam blocks to do engineering challenges and things like that. Then on the right, you can see the pre-K makerspace. We had a light table. We had lots of building materials and things like that. Then so that's the Living Arts and Science Center. And then we're gonna go over to the Lexington Public Library. So on the left, you can see the Klaber Foundation STEAM Lab. The Klaber Foundation STEAM Lab just opened in the March of this year, so it's still a relatively new space. You can see we have an audio booth, a collab lab, which is a place for students to collaborate and come up with ideas and things like that. And then this right here is what we call the STEAM Lab proper, where we do most of our programming and things like that. And our programming ranges, we do drop-in hours every week in the space. It is not open all the time. and that the programming changes out weekly. And we try to always do, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math in that space. That space is geared for 3rd through 12th graders. Then on the right, you can see the Makerspace. That is our brand new Makerspace at Eastside that just opened last month. So we're reopened. It was a reopening of a space that was previously a Makerspace pre-pandemic. So kind of reimagined the space, brought in some new equipment, and that space is staffed. That space is open 4 to 5 days a week, and it is staffed. And we have in there some of the things that are typical things that you think about when you think about a makerspace. So we have the 3D printer, CNC machine, Cricut, a heat press, a button maker, a large format printer, and a large format laminator. This space is for teens and adults, so that's going to be 13 and up. And we created this space to be a space for makers in the community, but also entrepreneurs, small business owners, artists. We also have sewing machines in the space. So we just opened last month, but we've already seen the community really embrace this space in a really great way. We say about this space, you are the maker, we are the space. So we really want to be able to be here for the makers, help them learn new skills and learn new equipment, but also just be a space. So we have crafting times where people can come in and they don't necessarily have to use any of the equipment. They can just use it as a space because it's really expensive and hard to find as an artist places to just do your art. So we're really excited to be able to offer that to the community. All right. So I'm going to tell you some of the biggest bangs for your buck that you can get if you are creating your makerspace on a budget. I would always recommend that you get items that are open-ended, items that the students can, and so this would be targeted for, kids up through teen, open-ended, non-consumable, and that will work with multiple age groups. So straws and connectors, magnet blocks, snap circuits, Legos, brain flakes, and then perler beads, which they are consumable, but they do go a really long way. So those would give you a big bang for your buck as well. The only thing I will say about perler beads is that you do have to iron them at the end. So you would have to have someone in charge of that. But these other things like straws and connectors, magnet blocks, snap circuits, those do have batteries in them. But Legos, brain flakes, that could be in a more passive setting, and people could come and do that as they want to. So you wouldn't necessarily have to have a staff person in there monitoring that. And then just some resources that I have found really helpful. I will go ahead and put another one in the chat. And I do want to kind of draw special attention to this one because makersinthelibrary.org has a set of webinars, and it's actually a 5-part webinar series all about how to develop and sustain a community-centered makerspace. And I watched those webinars before I created my most recent makerspace. And I wish I had that resource before I ever made my first one, because it talks about things like OSHA, and it talks about the sounds that your machines are going to make, and to be thoughtful of your space, in regards to safety and sound. When you get into laser cutters, there's and CNC machines, there's a lot of safety concerns that you just have to. They are great tools, but you just have to be thoughtful about the safety behind them. So So yeah, so I highly recommend the Makers in the Library webinar series, because it takes you through kind of like what we did today. It takes you through, thinking about who your stakeholders are. It takes you through thinking about the process and what do you want this space to like, and what are your outcomes? Who are you trying to reach? So wonderful, wonderful resource with them. And then if anybody has any questions, I would be more than happy to answer your questions. And then if you think of any questions after our time together today, you are more than welcome to give me a call or send me an email.
Thank you, Amanda. And as Amanda said, please type any questions you have into the chat, and we will answer them. Amanda, I have a question for you. What would you say is the biggest challenge in starting a makerspace?
For me personally, it's deciding what to do. Like, it's kind of overwhelming at the beginning, because there are so many options. And so that's when it's really important to think about your why. Why am I doing this? Okay, well, maybe I'm doing it for middle schoolers. And then, once you have that, your vision and your audience clear, then things kind of start to fall into place. But I think the beginning is always the hardest part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Thanks. Okay, Patricia's asking, they're leaning away from GoForge because of a lot of negative feedback from other libraries. Does anybody have a comparable machine to recommend that would be comparable to GoForge? And I must confess, I don't know what GoForge is.
Yeah, so Glowforge is a laser cutter,
Thank you.
and we actually also shied away from the Glowforge. So this gets kind of into those like technical things and thinking about OSHA and whatnot. But for the Glowforge, you have to either vent your laser cutter outside or purchase an indoor venting system. But with those, you actually have to change out the filters frequently, and they are very expensive. So we also leaned away from the Glowforge. I'm not sure. It kind of depends on why you're leaning away from the Glowforge. So we leaned away from the Glowforge because of needing to vent it outside. It was also a safety concern for our makerspace with the laser. And then it was also a little bit loud in the space that we had. So it kind of depends on why you're leaning away from it. There are other really nice laser cutters, but they're also going to have, the safety concerns, the venting concerns. So I actually don't have any laser cutters to recommend. They're great machines, but there are lots of concerns that come with them. So if anybody does have a comparable machine to recommend, I would be very interested in that as well.
Shannon in the chat said CNC machines are very useful and less dangerous. Shapeways.com/business/CNC-machining.
Yes. So I will say that we actually have a carbide. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, we have a carbide 3D machine and for CNC. And so you're getting very similar things, right? So your laser cutter, you're using a laser to cut, say, wood. With a CNC machine, you are using a drill bit to cut. So there's a little bit of differences in the things that you can do, but you can get a lot of similar products from them. So we do have a CNC machine in our new makerspace at Eastside, and we're very happy with it.
Great. Courtney did have a question. What would you suggest for small libraries with no extra space? What a great question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been there. So my two suggestions would be if you are able to commandeer a table, I would do that. And set it up as maybe a passive well, so it depends. So if you want to do like a passive program and kind of maybe gauge interest, I would commandeer a table if possible. In the kids area, if you're wanting to do a kids one, in the teen area or the adult area, depending on what audience you're looking for. And then start having some passive activities and passive programming. And then if you are wanting to kind of bulk that up a little bit, do a little bit more, I would highly suggest, turning a cart into a Makerspace cart. I did see that Ashley said that they had a small portable Makerspace and that they're looking to upgrade it and use it more. Since COVID, it has collected some dust, which I'm sure, we are all feeling that, coming back from COVID has been different. And a little bit difficult in some ways to bring the programming back and implement things again that we were doing and kind of think about what we were doing and do we want to do those same things or different things. So I would start with a table or start with a small portable Makerspace and I'm thinking like on a cart, and on that cart you could have all sorts of things to build with. I've done Makerspace programming with decks of cards and popsicle sticks and tape, and newspapers. Like it doesn't have to be, super expensive or super in depth. And you can do all sorts of building challenges and things like that. One of my favorite things about Makerspaces is challenging the customers to think in different ways and to problem solve. So there's lots of things that you can do without, a huge space.
Thanks. We had another question from Elizabeth. She says, we have a Makerspace in our new building that has not been used much because we opened it in 2020. Do you have any advice for advertising the Makerspace and getting the word out to the community so that they can use it?
Yeah, so Elizabeth, if you don't care to, I'd like to know kind of who the audience is for the Makerspace and what kinds of machines or technology or things that you have in there. But generally, I would say having programs in the Makerspace is one of the best ways I have found to advertise your Makerspace, because just a few weeks ago, we had a crafting night at the Makerspace at Eastside, and we had 17 people in there. And we've already seen some of those 17 people who had never been in there before come back and use the space. So I think, you can advertise, but actually having the people in the space is really, really helpful. I will also say letting people know the kinds of things they can do in the Makerspace is really important. So, because Makerspaces can be so different. So if you're, a space where they can 3D print things, I'd really let them know about that. Or if they can, use a Cricut machine while they're in there. And also we're trying to right now kind of promote projects. So when we started the Makerspace, planning for it, we really wanted people to be able to take a concept and be able to take that concept and see it all the way until that product, all the way until it's finished. And so, we're right now trying to show people finished products that they can create and have come out of the Makerspace. And then, I see, at inviting local homemakers groups, advertise to their members. That's a great idea, bringing in, specific groups to, tour and have, invite them to do special programming. And again, that's, connecting with those community members. And, you could even have the homemakers group come in and do a program in the Makerspace.
Yeah, Shannon also says programming draws people in. And Elizabeth put in some more information in the chat. They have a cry cut, a 3D printer, sewing machines, consumable craft materials, and it's targeted really towards all ages because they're a small library in a small town.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I will say, I was actually surprised by how many people really want to use the sewing machines. And there's a couple of things that we have found recently. One is that people have been gifted or have gotten a sewing machine, you know, from a relative or something, and they are like really scared of it. And I am also really scared of mine. I have been, so I totally understand because it's this, you know, giant machine and like I'm not totally quite sure how to use it. So offering some one-on-one sewing machine how-tos could be really helpful. You know, and even if they wanted to bring in their machine and maybe if someone were able to kind of help them feel more comfortable with it, or they could learn on the sewing machines that you have there, would probably be, you know, huge. And then also I would say, you know, because you have the Cricut, you have the 3D printer, I would say kind of promoting the things that they can make. Like, so, you know, we are getting ready to promote holiday cards. From all the maker spaces I have talked to, the holidays are the busiest time. So like from Halloween through New Year's, just because people are trying to make gifts and holiday cards and things like that. So we're really trying to get ready for the big holiday push. And I think showing people that they could make a holiday gift in your space would go a long way.
And Shannon says group sew-alongs can be super fun as well.
Absolutely. And one thing that I've actually realized really recently as we've opened the Makerspace at Eastside is that, you know, like I said before, people sometimes they just want a space. And so the crafting group that we've done, we don't have a craft for them to do. They bring their own craft. And we saw a ton of 20 to 30-year-olds who they all said they were so grateful to be kind of pushed to carve out that time to work on their craft. And I was surprised, honestly. And they were just so grateful to have the time and the space to be able to they brought their own materials in. And worked on the crafts that they were interested in. I will say too, in the Makerspace, we do have passive programming. So we do have like some coloring pictures or some weaving that people can do if they're in between projects or they just want some inspiration. And then I see Melissa is asking how we do the 3D printer because it takes so long to print. That is one of those things. I've seen it done a bunch of different ways. The way that we do it is that the customer comes in, if they don't already have a file that they want to print, we put them on Thingiverse and they can find something that they want to print. And once they have that, then we help them put it through the software, and it's called slicing it. So we slice it for them. It makes it compatible with the 3D printer. At that point, when you slice it, it tells you how many grams it weighs. And then, so if you're going to charge for it, that's when you would know how much it costs. And then it'll tell you how long it's going to take. If it's a project that is going to take until it won't be done until after we're closed, then we tell them that we will call them the next day that we are open and like set that expectation up in front, right? So like at the Makerspace at Eastside, we are never open on a Monday or a Tuesday. And so we set that expectation up front. This will be done and let them know when it should be done, but also let them know that sometimes there's printing errors for various reasons and that we will call them. I get a good phone number for them and that we will call you when it is complete on the next day that we are open. I know other makerspaces will have customers' email files. If you're going to charge for it, that can be problematic, but that's the way that we do it. Oh, and Erin, thank you for putting that in the comments. Yes, Louisville Free Public Library has wonderful makerspaces. Cincinnati has really good makerspaces. Kenton County has really good makerspaces as well.
And the Thingiverse, is that where people upload what they're printing so that other people can print the same thing?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So Thingiverse, I believe everything on Thingiverse is free, and you can see what other people have created, and you can download the files and then create them as well.
That's really cool. Well, thank you so much for all this good information. If anybody has questions, feel free to type them in the chat. We do have a few more minutes. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to check out the one at Eastside, honestly. I really want to get over there and see it.
Absolutely. We would be happy to have you. Oh, and I will say, I'll drop a couple of links in the comments for the Makerspace and the Kleber Foundation STEAM Lab.
Thanks. Well, thank you so much. This was really good. And feel free to check out our